And finally, we are getting to the last section of this video. It is the movies section review. So let's hop into it. Avatar: The Way of Water. Was it worth the wait? Fun fact, kind of a cap. I did not watch this in 2022. I watched this in like the second week of 2023. I'm still fucking counting it though, because this is my review and I do whatever the fuck I want, and it came out in 2022. So suck it. Anyways, was it worth the wait? Let's get into it. Way of Water, genuinely speaking, I thought it was worth the wait. 13 years later, and the series is still pretty good. It's a solid series. I'm not saying it's the best fucking entertainment in the world, but it's good. You know, it's good. Now, granted, the movie is 3 hours long, so if you have attention span issues, sorry, buddy. But it's very well paced. I don't feel like there's really many dull moments or slow moments that with the pacing in the movie. I thought the slow parts of the movie that they implemented in was well done. Overall, very well paced. Doesn't really feel like a 3-hour movie. Pretty solid. I personally really enjoyed how the story does not immediately follow the ending of the last one. Yes, technically it does, but there is a time skip of 15 years between the ending of Avatar 1 and when the main storyline for Avatar 2 comes out. And I like that because, yes, I was bitching earlier about time skips. They do fill in the blanks for those 15 years, but they fill it in pretty quickly at the beginning of the movie, and it makes you interested into what they've been doing, especially because the series has been gone for 13 years. So 13 years to 15 years in the movie, that's pretty comparable to real life time. So of course we'd like to fucking know what happened in the last 13 years. So I think it was pretty good that they did not pick it up immediately from the end, and they picked it up 15 years later, because I think it adds way more to the story and premise that could have been there. The next thing is the CGI technology and just the visual aspect of this movie was amazing. God, James Cameron and his ability to utilize new technologies to create spectacles is just wow. It's something else, man. It's something else. I watched it in IMAX and 3D, and shit, it's a fucking experience. Again, it doesn't feel like you're there for 3 hours, but you feel like you're in the movie, man. It's beautiful. If you all didn't know as to reason why it took so long, one of the reasons is because the technology to film this movie was not created yet. And this is also something that happened with Avatar 1 as well, where they basically created the IMAX technology to film in IMAX 3D for that movie. And that kind of revolutionized the industry. So that's why Avatar 1 blew up, because it was one of the most technologically influential movies. Avatar 2 comes along. Yes, they were writing 2, 3, and 4, I think, at the same time, and they filmed 2 and 3 at the same time. But the problem was that this is the key thing: Way of Water. How the f do you film underwater? Well, here's the fun fact. Most people film underwater. They use underwater cameras in pools to kind of film. The problem with using underwater cameras in pools is that the lighting is going to be weird. When you light things from above water, the light will refract. So when you're underwater, the light would look weird. If you try to illuminate from underneath the water, how are you going to get a dark scene that's underwater? It's literally impossible. So the technology that they ended up creating was creating new cameras that could be able to film underwater. And in these pools that they did, they added these plastic little see-through clear balls that helped deal with refraction of the light, as well as light reflecting off of the mocap capture on the actors' faces. So being able to film mocap underwater was nigh impossible because of light refraction, but with the new cameras and these plastic balls in the water allow them to film the shots that they were looking for, like all the deep underwater shots, the night water shots, etc., etc., and being able to film underwater clearly. But that took years to develop. So that's why the movie took 13 years to come out. But anyways, the technology is pretty breathtaking. I would recommend watching it. I think it's solid. Let's go to the cons. First one was definitely better of a movie. I don't think this movie was bad. I think it was good. I thought the plot was good. But I still think the first one was better. I think the cultural impact that the first one had, it's too big to surmount for a sequel to kind of live up to that kind of expectation. So I still think the first one was better, but this one was a solid movie. My only gripe with the first movie, and I tell this to people, but people don't necessarily know this, but the first movie is just Pocahontas. It's just a story of Pocahontas, except Jake Sully is John Smith, and he joins the natives. And the real life story of Pocahontas is pretty f***ed up, so I guess this is more of like a Disney version of Pocahontas. But yeah, there's your fun fact. The second con that I have for this is that there is a lot less action than the first movie. It's more story and plot based and character development than it is consistent action. But the visual storytelling is just really good. It's just good. So yeah, 8 out of 10. I hate swimming, but I go in the water for this one. Let's go to the next movie. Everything, Everywhere, All at Once. Do I even need to say anything about this movie? Do I even need to say anything about this movie? I am going to say some things, but trust me, this movie is fucking amazing. Just watch it. I think the number one pro of this movie is just fucking watch it. It is so well done. Editing is beautiful. Casting is great. The theme and the ideas behind the movie is wonderful. The implementation of culture is wonderful. The representation is fucking wonderful. Watch this fucking movie. It deserves all the awards that it has won this year. All the fucking Oscar awards that it has earned. It deserves every single one, in my opinion, just because it is so fucking good of a movie. It is just so good. If you're Asian, watch it. If you're Asian American, watch it. If you're not Asian American, fucking watch it. It's just one of those things that you need to watch. It will go down in my mind as a classic in history, and I hope that 50 years down the line I can look back and be like, holy shit, Everything Everywhere All at Once was the beginning of Asian representation in media and recognition, because the fact that Michelle Yeoh is the first Southeast Asian woman to win Best Actress ever speaks volumes. Anyways, going back into the movie, the characters themselves are very, very well written. You get the feeling of who each character is, their personality, their background, how they feel in contrast to those around them, the tension that is built up over years of knowing somebody. It is just all apparent and shown and represented super, super well. And it just really hits home as someone who comes from an Asian background to see just things that I'm familiar with put on the big screen. I remember growing up and telling my dad and talking to people like, why don't we see Asians in media? Why isn't there somebody like me up there? The only really Asian influence I had in quote unquote famous things were a couple actors here and there and esports figures, right? That kind of sucks, man. Of course, there's big cultural movies like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, and all that stuff. Yes, there is some representation there. Jackie Chan, Jet Li, all of this slowly bleeding more and more into Western media. It's all great and all that, but definitely growing up, you did not see an Asian guy as a main actor in something big. To be honest, one of the big things that I saw with an Asian guy as the main was Harold and Kumar. Shout out to Harold and Kumar. John Cho, Kal Penn, goated. But again, there was not much Asian representation there, so I think it's really great. One of the things that I think is just really important about it is how many Asian Americans across the board, and Asians in general, have very similar backgrounds and experiences that we can all relate with one another. And the culture behind who we are have very similar roots. And I think a lot of people can identify and relate to this kind of movie because it touches points on all of those related roots. It was very similar to the feeling that Subtle Asian Traits gave when it first started up. Seeing memes about Milo or a specific Chinese cough medicine that we all had, or not wearing shoes in the house, or when your mom yells your name in Chinese, you know you're in trouble. Those are all common trends that Asian Americans can experience and share, you know? Getting your ass beat with a feather duster, that is for sure common amongst a lot of Asians and Asian Americans. And I think a movie that can touch on those kind of roots and speak to that many people while having such a positive message and spin on it is just so powerful, and it's just one that I have to recommend for people to watch, man. It's just something that you have to watch. And of course, the ending is chef's kiss. I think the ending of Everything Everywhere All at Once was just one of the most powerful and gratifying feelings that can be represented in media, where just the everyday man can just feel the gravity of what just happened in that scene. The breaking down of walls and openness to accepting flaws and differences is just it's beautiful. It's beautiful. Watch their Oscar speeches and their acceptance speeches. The main actor who plays Wayman Wang, he was short round back in the 80s. He left Hollywood because he could not get any roles. He could not get anywhere because, again, Asian representation was just not there. And he came back to win the Oscars. So watch his Oscars acceptance speech because it's so heartwarming and really, really kind of speaks to the experience that a lot of us have had. There's no cons here. Just fucking watch it, dude. Just watch it. 10 out of 10. Everything you want in a bagel and more. Just absolutely love this movie. Just go fucking watch it. Movie number 3. Dune. All right, we're changing pace completely. We went from a kind of psychedelic trip into Asian American lifestyles and an Asian family to House Atreides. Living it out on an alien planet, getting some spice, bro. All right, Dune. I thought it was a great visual spectacle. I thought it was wonderful. I love Denis Villeneuve's work, and I thought he did great. I think the set scenes and just the wide shots that he had was just so beautiful. The wide shot of the city when House Atreides first comes in is just oof. And even when they zoom out for certain parts, for example, after Oscar Isaac's character gets killed, they zoom out a little bit into the Great Hall and just see him laying there on the floor. That is just beautiful. When they're out in the desert running, when Paul and his mom are running away and you see the giant sandworm appear out of nowhere. It's fucking cool, man. I think it's just super fucking sick. I thought that they casted the movie very, very well. To be honest, there isn't a lot of acting in the movie. A few characters have a few lines, but in general, there really isn't much acting. It's much more action-y, pace, movement, a lot of visual kind of experience. But I thought the casting was really well done. I think Oscar Isaac is great. I'm a big Oscar Isaac fan. I think bringing in Dave Bautista was great. He played his role very, very well. Jason Momoa, of course, always a badass, played his badass character in the movie. Kind of spoiler here, Zendaya was not really well used in here, but she's apparently going to have a much bigger part in part 2. Anyways, great casting. I thought they fit the characters really well. Timothée Chalamet was a great Paul Atreides. Thought it was really good. Solid. It is part 1. Part 2 initially was not announced or approved when they released the movie. However, part 2 is coming and has been announced, so I'm really excited for the part 2 because there's definitely a lot here that was kind of left unsaid. So yeah. Cons. There's definitely too much info in the Dune universe. If you guys have ever seen the Dune book or read the Dune book, I have not. Dune is a really, really, really packed world and universe. It's almost impossible to give the feeling of 3,000 years of war over a resource on a specific planet and how that has created tensions amongst the natives as well as people who have continued to invade and conquer the land to take part in that resource because of like a government system. That is so hard to sell and represent in any aspect. I'm pretty sure in Dune, that's like a few hundred pages, just spelling all that shit out. Like Dune is a thick ass book. So it's impossible to fit everything into a 3-hour movie. So yes, there is going to be a ton of story arcs, people, characters, information that's going to be missing from this movie compared to the book. So if you are an avid book fan and you're expecting this to be exactly like the books, I can't promise you that. But as a general introduction into the Dune universe, I thought they did really well. 8 out of 10. Stay hydrated, guys. It's great. Movie number 4, Glass Onion. Well, I hope you've seen Glass Onion. If you don't know what Glass Onion is, it is a continuation of Rian Johnson's Knives Out series. I think it's pretty good. Overall, I actually really liked how obvious this movie was. And I think that's kind of the point of the movie, which I think made it really great, was that everything is presented exactly as it is. And I think that's great because human brains have the tendency to quote unquote fill in the blanks. So our brain skips over facts or details because we don't actually process everything directly that is shown. So I think having a movie that plays on that trope is just so good. And I thought it was really funny. The second great thing I thought about this was that it is a great meta commentary on the world. Rian Johnson does it again. I think kind of his meta commentary on the world is just what he does best. And I think commenting on how social media and the rise of all of these billionaires who are seen as geniuses for what they've done and all this idolization of people, I think this is just a great meta commentary on that aspect of the world. Perfect example would be SVB with FTX and how that fucking fell apart. This is a guy that was playing Bronze League of Legends in board meetings and people are giving him billions of dollars. Like, huh? Anyways, aside from FTX rant, I think it's great to talk about that. My cons with this movie was I don't think it was good as the first one. Even though the first one was, again, a simple plot, simple concept and idea. It's Pinocchio. She's Pinocchio. She can't lie, right? But I love that. I thought the tension in Knives Out, the first one, was really good. I thought the character development of the family was seeing how they were like, oh, we're all in this together versus like showing the vitriol that they all have for one another because all they care about is the money. I think that's just too good of writing to be in this aspect of how obvious this movie was trying to be. So I think that's pretty much my only gripe with it. It does play into the see-through trope, and I think that's like the whole idea. It's supposed to be complex with layers, but it's literally see-throughable. That may not be for everybody. I think some people might hate the idea that it's just so plain and obvious and not really complex, but I enjoy that. Could be a con for some people. I thought it was a pro. 7.5 out of 10. Elon Musk sucks. Now we're just going to go to a final lightning rapid round for a few movies just because this is really long and I'm getting kind of tired. So let's talk about The Batman, Thor Love and Thunder, Secrets of Dumbledore, and Jurassic World Dominion. We are going fucking fast. So The Batman. I thought The Batman was entertaining. Pattinson was pretty good and I actually thought he was a pretty solid Bruce Wayne. He played a more brooding, realistic Bruce Wayne and Batman, which I thought was pretty good, actually. I'm a fan of that dark, realistic take versus kind of like that more stylized, cartoony comic book kind of style. For example, Christian Bale's Batman, The Dark Knight, is my favorite because it has that more realistic grit to it versus like Michael Keaton's is more of like a meme kind of comic book one to me, personally. So I thought this was pretty good and I enjoyed that. I thought the Riddler was a really good villain. I thought the casting of it was really well. I thought the riddles and tricks were interesting and complex. I thought the way they represented the riddles, like kind of insanity, but also sanity with his planning and the way he leaves tips and tricks around. Like, I thought it was really well done. I think Riddler is represented as a meme for a mass majority of time. So I think giving him a more crazed social media man I thought it was good. I liked it. Cons? It did not need to be 3 hours. Holy shit. Okay, I watched this movie on the plane, so I had time to burn, but holy fucking shit. If I was not on the plane, I would not have sat through this movie for 3 hours. I'm not going to lie. It basically had two endings where it ended one time, and then it had an entire extra 45 minutes of another arc that needed to end. And I don't think that they really needed to go delve into that. I think if they cut the movie at 2:15, 2:10, it would have been totally fine. If they kept it within just the Riddler's planning, I think that would have been fine and cool. I don't think they really needed to add all the extended stuff that they did. So, would I recommend it? I think it's a solid movie. Pretty good. 6.5 out of 10 in my opinion. I'm Batman, so, you know, I watched it. I'm a Batman fan. You know, it do be like that. If you don't want to sit through 3 hours, don't watch it. Next, Thor Love and Thunder. This movie was fucking ass. This was such a waste of time, and I cannot believe I actually spent the 2 hours to sit and watch this movie. It was such a waste of time, and Marvel is going down the drain fucking fast. I think the biggest problem with this movie was that they tried way too hard to make it funny, and it was not it. Little bits and spurts throughout the movie is good. I think, for example, Ragnarok did a wonderful job of this. I think Taika Waititi, what he did for Thor in Ragnarok and resurrecting the character to make him funny and enjoyable instead of just being the dumbass, I think he did really well. But I think they went a little bit too far with this movie, and I think it ruined it for me. And the second thing is just the pacing is fucking horrible. Oh my god, it just goes from scene to scene, plot point to plot point, and there's no consistency. You go from a slow scene to a really fucking fast scene back to a slow scene, and it just doesn't flow well. And you have all these pauses in the flow with their attempts at being funny that it's not it. 4 out of 10 going downhill fast. It's dropping fast. Secrets of Dumbledore. The only good thing about this movie was the chillin', and that's just because you can pronounce it chillin'. I'm chillin'. And that's literally it. I just made the chillin' into a fucking meme in my life, and that's it. It's on par with being chilling. I'm just chillin'. But to be honest, that's the only good thing about this movie. It's fucking ass. It's a waste of time. do not watch this movie. Do not continue the series. I'm pretty sure they're canceling the Fantastic Beasts series after all the shittiness. I know this movie was basically set up to fucking fail, but like, holy shit, this movie was bad. Do not watch it. 3 out of 10. Go back to Hogwarts. Get some education. This is a shit movie. Finally, the last movie that we're going to talk about is Jurassic World Dominion. And the only cool thing that I thought about this movie was that they brought back the old cast, bringing in Jeff Goldblum and Dr. Allen, basically the characters from the original ones from the 80s. I thought it was cool to bring back the old cast. It's a cool thing that they're trying to do, bringing back old cast members into new movies and new TV shows. Cool, fine, show some continuity with it. That's whatever. But at the end of the day, I really genuinely don't think that they were that important to the plot. I think the plot of the daughter themselves was good enough. I don't think they needed to shoehorn all of the old cast into this. It was entertaining, but it's a pretty bad movie. To be honest, I don't think any of the Jurassic World series has been that good. If you compare them to how Jurassic Park was, Jurassic Park 1, 2, and 3 were so core to my childhood and were so iconic that all the Jurassic Worlds have kind of ruined that for me a little bit, just because of how bad the Jurassic Worlds have been, in my opinion. So I think the original Jurassic Park was just really good. Going back on the trope of like, haven't you learned from the last 20 years 4 times in a row, like 6 times in a row, is pretty tiring. So I kind of was drained right there. But yeah, overall, I think the first Jurassic World was the best one, but 2 and 3 have just been pretty ass. And I definitely think this was a series that they should not have resurrected and left it back in the 90s. 5 out of 10. Dinos are cool. This movie is not. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. This was a really long video that I put a lot of effort into. Prezi is ass, and I don't think I'll ever do a Prezi again for this shit. But again, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Please leave comments on what your thoughts were about this format, about this kind of content that I'm producing. Please leave a comment on your opinions on these shows or games that I've offered up. There's tons of them, and I'm definitely open to hearing your thoughts on your experiences with them. So please let a brother know. If you like my kind of content, you want to see more of me and what I do, please give me a like and a subscription if you'd like. Again, it's free. It's all up to you. And at the end of the day, all I want you to do is stay hydrated. Catch you later, homies. Peace.